Good afternoon. My name is Margaret John, and I want to discuss with you St. Augustine's view of evil argument. What did he think of evil? First, I'd like to say that St. Augustine was born in 354 CE in North Africa. He's known as the greatest of the Christian church fathers. The Christian Western tradition is indebted to the teaching of St. Augustine. His father, Patrick, was a sinner. In other words, he didn't belong to the church. His mother, Monica, was a what you would call a Christian, right? Living person or Christian, whatever, however you want to define her, but she was a Christian. St. Augustine did not convert to Christianity until 386. And the way he described that in his book, Confessions, he had always struggled with the question of evil. What caused evil? Why was people evil? Why did he could invite evil into his life, but he could not, like he had no control over it? And that had been bothering him. One day he was sitting outside, he was waiting for his mother to come out, and he heard a voice and it said, "Pick up and read." And he looked around and he didn't see anything, and he heard his voice again. Up as he tells it. I mean, I don't know if the Bible was lying there or it was something he did at a later time, but he did start reading the Bible, and he converted to Christianity at that time. Well, I don't know if it was immediate at that time, but he did convert to Christianity. Now, he in his book Confession, he it's like a diary, and he has, I mean, it's all his struggles, and he detailed them, and he didn't try to define evil. He tried to understand evil. Why do we have evil? Why would we struggle with evil? Because as he knew it, evil was like for him was personal, and he understood he had a sexual. He was addicted to sex, and he, I guess, having a Christian mother, of course, he would feel that this is evil. Being raised in the church, he would feel that this is evil, and not understand why. I guess he couldn't say no. Why he's addicted to sex would bother him because it, from the beginning, he appeared to have morals as such. Um, so again, he wanted to ex- understand something because he felt that even at that young age, well, I say young age, I mean, he was not really experienced at that time in the church, so he felt that he could not really explain evil, but there had to be a reason for it. So he, in Confessions in chapter 7, verse 5, he cited that evil is something that you suffer rather than an act by humanity. So now if it's something that you suffer, that means that it's not real. It's not, it doesn't have body, it doesn't have substance to it. So really it's really more of an experience than anything else. And he wanted to know why. He asked the question. He said that evil is not is, well, he made the comment that it's not something that we should fear because the good Lord made, God made everything, and he made everything good. And if God made everything good, then he did not create evil. So nothing can ever, so he knew it was all his heart that nothing could overpower God or cause God to be less than perfect. He said he was the all good creator. He had all power, and there was nothing that could overthrow God or overpower God. But he created man in his image and his likeness. But man is weak, and man is finite. He can change, but God cannot change. So St. Augustine came to the determination that The human soul is free to go against God, since God provided man with the free will from the very beginning, from time of creation. But God, even though man can go against God, God will not go against man. Man can produce evil, but God cannot produce evil. God will not produce evil. He said that he understood evil as something without a soul, because man, since man was created in the image of God, he had a soul, so he could not be all evil. He said, "We are not God." Speaking of man, we're not God. So that if we're not man, then we are subject to change. We're subject to make mistakes, and there again, we do not have the wisdom of God. We cannot explain why certain things happen to us or in life. He said, sometimes we misunderstand evil due to our lack of knowledge. And again, I agree with that statement, because many times when look at people and we have the judgment calls, which is totally off. It's not true. So that there again, we still go back to the question. So then, why do we commit sin? What is evil? How do we know that we are doing something that's wrong? I mean, what caused this? He made a comment. He wrote this in his confession. He said that as a teenager, he and his friends broke into this neighbor's garden. They was not poor. They was not hungry. And there was really no excuse for it. The pear tree was there, and they saw the tree, and they stole the pears. Now, something like this, people could say it's a no behavior for boys, but it bothered him as to why did they do this? Why did they commit this act? I mean, there's no reason for it. So why did they do that? Um, he was a devout reader and researcher. He kept searching for answers, and he came upon reading the Bible, which he started reading when he at the time that he decided to convert to Christianity. But he came upon this in Romans 7th chapter, the 21st verse, where he was reading and he found that the Apostle Paul had struggled with the same problem, wondering about evil. And he said that this is what Apostle Paul has said: "Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law. But I see another law at work in me, raging against the law of my mind, and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. What a wretched man I am." Who, he asked the question, who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Thanks to God who delivered me through Jesus Christ our Lord. To try to understand, not define, but to try to understand evil, St. Augustine turned to the book of Genesis, which is the book with the beginning of creation, to analyze evil, how the evil come into the world. And he came to the conclusion that God had given Adam and Eve, the first man and woman, free will, which they lost. And evil actually came then from human weakness of willpower, lack of free ill use of free will, for want of a better word. I mean, they had the will to make a decision, and they had free will to make a choice, and unfortunately, that choice was the wrong one. Now, I just want to say I agree with Augustine's argument about free will, that God did not create evil. I too refer to the book of Genesis in addressing the question of why humanity chose to sin, or and sin. I guess we will look at sin in this as we would define sin as evil. So in reading Genesis, the first chapter, in the 31st verse, and it reads that God saw everything that he had created as good, as very good. Then in Genesis 2 and 9, he says, "Now out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil." Now I'm going to hesitate. I'm going to pause here for 1 minute and just repeat that. When God created earth or created man, he had a tree in the midst of the garden, and that tree was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And keep that in mind. We find it in Genesis 2 and 17. God tells man, Adam, "Of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." Yet, yet, in Genesis the third chapter, there is a conversation between Eve, Adam's wife, and the serpent, the snake. And the snake was trying to convince Eve that God didn't really. Well, he when he approached her, he said to her, "Did God not tell you not to eat of a certain tree?" And the conversation went back and forth, and she agreed that yes, God has said, "Do not eat of that tree that is in the garden, that we would die." So the snake said to her, "You won't die. Just that you'll be just as wise as this. You have you know right. You'll be like God. You'll be wise. I mean, you'll be better off eating this fruit, eating enough this fruit." And I say fruit because we always claim it was an apple. The Bible does not state that it was an apple. It said it was the fruit of the tree that she chose to eat and that she gave to Adam to eat. So of course she gave it to Adam, and when God came in that evening, he called them. They said to him, "We can't come. We can't face you. We're naked." So I mean, he wants them to know why. How do you know you're naked? Who told you was naked? Um, and right away, as always, the parents, from the very beginning of time, they began to place blame. Adam placed the blame on Eve. Eve placed the blame on the snake. No one wanted to take responsibility for it. And but just think of one thing. God had There was one thing. He had this beautiful garden, and there was only one request that he made of them. They lived a life of luxury. They nothing to worry about. Beautiful life. And he just said, "Do not eat from that tree in the midst of the garden." He didn't say, "Well, if someone come to you and tell you, it's okay to eat, that you can go ahead and eat it. Just do not eat off that tree." And but did they listen? No. Why? Because they want to do this. They had free will. When God created man, Adam and Eve, he created them with that opportunity to make the choice. Do as you're told, and just one thing, but do as you're told, and everything will be okay. But if you go against what I said, then there is consequences to be made for disobeying. I conclude man has the wisdom to understand why God, who's all good and who created him, he had the ability to choose good and he choose evil. Thank you. Good afternoon. Diane, Diane, come here. I just had Ian scream. What should have done?
Stop a minute, you know we'll be live.
So, not yet.
You finished?
Yeah.
In.
Huh?
In.